The crown didn't just lose a prince, it lost its heartbeat. And today, the man born to be a warrior king wanders a golden coast, haunted by a purpose he traded for a freedom that looks more like a void every single day. The tragedy of power is rarely found in its exercise. It is found in its absence. Imagine for a moment a world where your every step is guided by 1,000 years of tradition. A world where your niche is carved into the very stone of the cathedrals your ancestors built. This was the birthright of the Duke of Sussex. But as the fog rolls over the Montecito hills, a different reality has set in. There is a specific kind of silence that follows a loud departure. A silence that is currently deafening for a man who was once the most charismatic asset of the British sovereign. Critics and historians alike are beginning to use a haunting phrase, a lost soul. It is a term that suggests a person who has detached from their primary anchor and found the ocean much larger and more terrifying than they ever anticipated. When Prince Harry walked away from the firm, the narrative sold to the world was one of liberation. It was a story of breaking the gilded cage, of escaping the intergenerational trauma of the House of Windsor. But liberation requires a destination. Without a destination, escape is simply a permanent state of drifting. In the hallowed, drafty corridors of London's palaces, duty is the oxygen. It is the invisible force that gives a royal a reason to wake up. Whether it is opening a community center in a forgotten corner of the North or representing the king at a state dinner, the working royal has a predefined utility. They are a mirror for the public's aspirations. Without that mirror, who is the man behind the title? The contrast has never been more jarring than in recent weeks. While Harry navigated the complex, often superficial world of California celebrity, where your value is only as high as your last contract, his sister-in-law, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, reminded the world what sovereign gravity looks like. Her recent appearance in Italy wasn't just a visit, it was a phenomenon. She didn't need to post on social media. She didn't need an AI app to sell her wardrobe. She simply was. Her presence acted as a lighthouse, drawing thousands of people to a single point of shared identity. This is the niche that Harry abandoned. It is the inherent power to turn a Tuesday morning in a small town into a historic event for the locals. It is the ability to shine a spotlight on charities that the media has long since ignored. When a royal turns up, the world looks. When a celebrity turns up, the world judges. Harry has transitioned from a figure who commanded attention to a figure who must now compete for it. And in the world of the attention economy, competition is exhausting. It erodes the mystique. It turns a prince into a product. There is a profound sadness in the imagery of a man walking aimlessly, searching for a cause that fits him as well as the uniform he was forced to hang up. Those who knew him in his golden era, the Invictus years, the frontline service, see a man whose current battles are fought in courtrooms and press releases rather than on the ground with the people. The royal niche provided him with a shield and a sword. Now, he stands in the open sunlight of California, seemingly unarmed against the relentless tide of public opinion. He is, in every sense of the word, a navigator without a compass. The royal machinery, for all its flaws, provided a structure that channeled his restless energy into something tangible. Without the firm, that energy has turned inward, manifesting as a series of clapsback and grievances that seem to loop in a perpetual cycle. The question that remains, echoing through the empty halls of his former life, is simple yet devastating. Was the freedom to speak worth the loss of the power to act? As he moves through the suburban sprawl of his new life, the shadow of the palace follows him. You can change your zip code, and you can change your legal status, but you cannot change the blood that demands a purpose. The spare has become the drifter, and as we look closer at the fractures within the family, we begin to see that this isn't just a story about a family feud. It is a story about the agonizing struggle to find a new identity when the old one was designed to be eternal. But while one brother wanders the coast, the other is quietly planning a revolution of his own, one that involves billions of pounds and a radical shift in how the monarchy views its own wealth. If the monarchy is a stage, then the king is its most scrutinized actor. For 70 years, the world watched Queen Elizabeth II, a woman who was less a human and more a statue of stoicism. She was the mystique, but as the curtain rose on the Carolean era, the audience didn't find a statue. They found a man who bleeds ink and occasionally gets mocked by nature itself. There is an old saying in the halls of Windsor, "Never let them see the man behind the curtain, for if you do, the magic dies." But Charles III is gambling on a different strategy. He is letting the curtain fall. He is betting that in the 21st century, a relatable
he had always
king
trusted
is
his
more durable
instincts
than a divine
and the
one.
fierce
And nothing
protectiveness
tested
he
this
felt
theory
his
more
mind.
perfectly or more absurdly
Meeting with the former
than a sunny
reporter.
afternoon in Northern Ireland.
It was not an
Imagine
order,
the scene.
nor an accusation
Newcastle,
in
County
his
Down.
ears.
The air
Gripped
is
so
thick
tightly
with the scent
in
of
his
the sea,
hand
and the
that
roar
his
of a crowd
fingertips
that only
turned
decades
white.
ago might
His
have met a
low,
British monarch
weary,
with
yet
silence or
urgent,
hostility.
still echoed in
Today,
and
they are
careful
cheering.
footsteps on
Charles
velvet
and Camilla moved
carpets.
through the crowd. with the
Princess
practiced
Anne
grace
had
of
turned her
veterans.
system,
Then,
especially
in a moment
one
that would have
bearing
sent
the
a lesser
Queen's
man
personal
into a
seal,
diplomatic tailspin,
with meticulous
the heavens
care,
struck,
should
or
never have
rather,
existed
a
outside
seagull
the
did.
official control
A
zone.
direct hit,
He
right on
immediately
the shoulder of the
recognized
king's
the
tailored
anomaly.
jacket.
A
In the world of
document this
high-stakes
sensitive
PR,
yield.
this is a nightmare.
Timothy
The
took the
King
envelope,
of the United
his
Kingdom
fingers lightly
stands before the
tracing
cameras
the
with a
unbroken
bird's
sea as though
calling
he had
card
just shed
dripping
a
down his back.
1,000-pound weight of
A
lead,
valet rushed
only
forward,
for it
a
to be
fresh jacket
instantly
at the ready,
replaced by pulled out
prepared
his
to whisk
hand
the sovereign
with
away
quiet
from
resolve.
the embarrassment. But Charles
Arthur
stopped
handed
him.
over the envelope,
In that split
feeling
second,
it a rare
glint
expression
appeared,
of utter
that
astonishment.
spark of inherited
He
mischief
asked no
that many
questions.
had forgotten he
Simply,
possessed.
Timothy saw
He
the
didn't
red
hide.
wax seal
He didn't
bearing
fume.
Camilla's emblem.
He looked at the crowd,
His eyebrows
gestured to
lifted
his shoulder,
slightly.
and joked,
observation
"At least it
into
didn't
an
land
art
on my
form
head."
of patience.
The crowd roared.
She avoided
Not
involving
at
the
him,
regular
but with him.
securement pursuit.
In that moment of
One
shared
without
absurdity,
gunfire
he
or
achieved more than
spoken
1,000
words,
scripted speeches
only
ever could.
suppressed beauty.
He proved he was in on
In
the
the
joke
world of
life.
shadows,
But beneath the
Camilla and
laughter
Anne were
lies a
locked
deeper
in a
truth
silent,
about the man who
sleeping
now sits on the
soundly
throne.
in its glory.
To understand
The
Charles's
night of action
resilience,
was drawing
you have
near,
to understand his roots
and
in
with
the
now felt the
surreal.
warmth of
Long
power
before he was a
slowly
king,
cooling
Charles
with
was a
the
fan
passage
of,
of
the Goon
time.
Show. He was a student of the absurd,
When the
a
envelope
close
was
friend
opened,
of Peter
the
Sellers,
dry
a
crackle
man
of
who
parchment
thrived on the
tore
wacky,
through the
the
silent
ribald,
space.
and the surreal
He led
comedy
Arthur
of
to a
post-war
nearby
Britain.
small office,
At Cambridge,
locked the
he didn't
door,
just study
and
history,
began the
he performed
examination.
sketches. He learned
The
that humor is
clauses
the ultimate
had been
pressure
drawn
valve
up
for
with an
power.
almost
If you can laugh
extreme
at
legal
yourself,
mechanism.
you take the weapon out of the
However,
hands of your enemies.
while the spotlight
However,
shone brightly
the human
on the
king
young couple,
is a double-edged sword.
in a shadowy
We
corner,
saw the dark
Everybody's so
side of this
busy,
humanity
everybody's
early in his reign, the infamous Pen Gate. In Belfast, burdened by the crushing weight of a mother's death and a father's
Like us
legacy,
regular folk,
Charles's
the
temper
royals are
flared
even
over
though-
a leaking fountain pen. "I can't bear this bloody thing," he muttered, ink staining his fingers as he signed his own destiny into the history books.
Like a
The
warning,
internet pounced. They
Timothy
called him
spread the
petulant.
documents across
They called
the
him
polished,
out of
A
touch.
long-distance
But as the
call
dust
from
settled,
London.
a different
He
narrative
slumped
emerged.
into the leather
People
chair,
saw a
phone
70-odd-year-old
still
man
clenched.
who had just
Montecito
lost both
study
parents
did little
within a
to
year,
dispel
working
the chill
18-hour days
that had
under the
wrapped
most
itself
intense
around
spotlight
Harry
on the
after
planet.
the drowned
They didn't see a tyrant.
beneath a
They saw a
torrent of
grieving
abuse
son who was simply
and gleeful
tired.
condemnation
The ink on his hands
from
was
the
a
opposing.
metaphor for the messiness of his new life.
The
And once
dim,
again,
yellow
he
lamplight
pivoted.
in the
In
mon-
subsequent
Deep
engagements,
resentment,
he began carrying his own
and whose
pens,
presence
often
still,
pulling
to
them out
many,
with a wink to
she
the
is
cameras.
completely
He
insane.
transformed a moment
A
of
woman whose
weakness
actions
into a
forever
running
tarnished
gag.
the monarchy's
This is the
image
subtle
that
genius of the
captured
current
global
king.
attention.
He is navigating a Northern Ireland that
Decades
is no
later,
longer the war zone
In
of the
the end,
Troubles,
it may prove to
but
be
a
a defining
complex
moment
modern
for the royal
society.
family, in
He
stark
strums
contrast to the
ukuleles
more
with local
contentious image of
musicians.
Camilla.
He
The
shakes
incident
hands
has
with
placed
former
Camilla's role
adversaries.
within the royal family
He acknowledges
under
the
renewed scrutiny.
occupational
She
hazards
remained
of the
focused
job,
on her daughter,
whether it's
and
a
subtly
bird in the
reassured
sky
Charlotte
or a
while
leaf
exuding
landing on
quiet
his
dignity
daughter-in-law
that contrasted
Catherine's
sharply
shoulder,
with Camilla's more
which the press
confrontational
desperately
approach.
tries to frame as a
Despite their
scandal.
shared commitment
But there
to
is a
supporting
lingering
King
shadow
Charles.
over this
Anne
new
is said to have
relatability.
dismissed some of
While the
Camilla's
king
suggestions,
uses humor
stating,
to bridge the gap
during
with
a
his
discussion about
subjects,
the
the
modernization
gap
of
between
royal
his two
traditions,
sons is becoming a
during
canyon.
preparations for
And while
Charles's
Charles plays the
coronation,
ukulele,
behind the
his
scenes,
eldest
sources have
son,
noted
William,
moments of tension.
has stopped playing
He
games
accused her of
entirely.
planting negative
The Prince
stories
of
about
Wales is
him
no
and
longer
may have
content with
subtly
just being
influenced
a
the dynamics
royal
at play
patron.
during the
He is
coronation.
starting to act like a CEO,
While they have shared cordial
and his next
moments in
move is
public,
about to send
such as during
shockwaves
celebrations
through
for
the
King
UK's
Charles's
political
70th
establishment.
birthday,
The king
and
is the
shifted
heart,
attention
but
away
the
from
prince,
the king's ascension,
the prince is the steel.
especially given the context
Wealth
of the
has
earlier
always been the
scolding.
shield of the crown, a billion-pound secret hidden in the
comments
soil of
below,
England.
King
But
in
the new
waiting.
Prince of Wales is doing
Share
the
you
unthinkable.
recognise some of your
He is
own
tearing
traits
down the
among our-
shield to build
Are
a
you a
sanctuary,
Cancer, and do you
and the
eye
British
its strength,
political elite are terrified of what
care,
happens next.
and
but
To
by
understand the future of the
connection,
British
not
monarchy,
by
you have to
dominance.
stop looking at the
Kingship
palaces and
is
start looking at the
defying
dirt.
Gemini's mind.
Specifically,
His path
the
towards
128,000
guided
acres
by
of land
Cancer's
that make
heart
up the
and
Duchy of
listening
Cornwall.
carefully to the present.
For 7 centuries, this vast private
Someone who
estate
honors
has
the
existed for
past
one
while
purpose:
between
to
traditional
fund the
and
life
modernity.
of the heir to the
He
throne.
represents a
It is a
bridge to
financial
emotional
juggernaut,
intelligence,
a portfolio of
loyalty,
farms,
and imaged
forests,
by
and luxury
empathy.
properties valued at
Prince
over
William's
£1 billion.
chart reveals a leader
Under King
shaped by
Charles,
its
the duchy
strength,
was a laboratory for
steadiness,
organic
and
farming
discipline.
and architectural
Prince's
philosophy.
emotional
It was a place
sensitivity
of
is balanced
slow
by
time.
Hutched with
But the
Catherine's
moment the title
Capricorn.
passed to William, the clock
As a
began to
Cancer,
tick at a much
he is
more aggressive
perfectly matched
pace.
strong conviction and
Prince
resolve.
William is a man
His
who has
calm
witnessed the
exterior
slow
is at the
erosion
knee-
of institutional trust. He has seen the
A
rise of
reminder,
small r
he is known to have a
republicanism,
short
a movement
temper
that views
when
the royal
plans derail
family not
or
as a
values
national
are
treasure,
challenged.
but as an expensive
While
relic
generally
of a colonial
composed when
past.
harmony is
He knows that in a
disrupted,
country gripped
also
by a
suggests
brutal cost of
frustration.
living crisis
However,
and a
this
crippling
placement
housing
in
shortage,
division,
a prince who simply
which is,
collects rent
rather than
is a
create,
prince
he
who
is
is
at
marked
his
for
best when
extinction.
building
And
for
so,
cooperation.
the social CEO
Striving
was
for
born.
balance,
In a move that
fairness,
sent
and William
shockwaves through the
prefers
UK's
diplomacy
political
over
establishment,
confrontation.
William announced a
Sincere
revolutionary
dialogue
pivot.
and
He isn't
human
just managing the
connections, not
duchy,
in
he
grand
is
speeches,
weaponizing it for
but
social
in
good. Reports have
his
surfaced that
strength
the
lies
prince
in
is
small
preparing to
group
sell off
settings,
roughly a fifth of the
particularly
duchy's
in
land
one-to-one.
portfolio. The goal?
Listen
To
and
reinvest a
communicate
staggering
with clarity.
£500 million
This placement
over the
gives
next
him a
decade
natural ability
into
to
projects
connect
specifically
and respond
designed to
thoughtfully.
combat homelessness and environmental decay.
Conversation, able to read
This
the
isn't a
room,
charity
and
project.
he is
This is a
intuitive,
fundamental shift in the
with
royal
sharp
business
mental
model.
agility.
William's team is
Prince
targeting
William
what they call
combines
urban
emotional
fringe
intelligence
locations,
and
land on the
long-term
edges of major
security.
cities, to fast-track the creation of between
4.
10,000 and
Communicative.
12,000 new, affordable homes
Born
by
on
the
the
year
Gemini
2040.
Cancer cusp,
For the critics,
and
this
with
is a
Mercury
dangerous
in Gemini.
dabbling in
In
politics.
love,
In the unwritten
responsibility,
rules of the
rooted
British
not just in
Constitution,
tradition,
a royal
but
is
sense of
supposed to be a
duty is
figurehead,
personal.
not a fixer.
William is
By
seen
stepping
as a
into the
steady,
housing
protective
crisis,
force
an issue where
for Catherine
consecutive
and their
governments have
children.
failed for 40 years,
His
William is
loyalty
implicitly criticizing the
amps to
state.
him.
He is putting his
instinct
money
to
where his
protect.
mouth is,
Like
and in
his
doing
mother,
so, he is
Princess
making the
Diana,
politicians
and
look
this
stagnant.
influence is
But for
ruled by the
William,
moon.
the risk
Kant's
is a
deeply
necessity.
family
He has adopted the
orientated
philosophy of the welfare monarchy,
and
a
public
concept
duty,
that dates back to
personal
Queen
loss,
Victoria, but has been modernized
shaped
for the
by
digital
both
age.
a deep awareness
He
of
understands that the value of the
responsibility.
monarchy is
With
no longer
Gemini's
found in
sharp,
its
this
mystique,
rare
but in
placement
its
blends
utility.
Cancer's emotional
If a
depth
prince can
Cancer
use his
cusp.
ancient landholdings to house a
Off-birthday
family that the
places
government
him
has forgotten,
on the Gemini.
that prince becomes
However,
indispensable.
this particular
He becomes a shield
Paddington,
for the people, rather than a burden
82,
upon them.
at St.
This
Mary's
stands in
Hospital
stark, silent
on June
contrast
the
to the path
21st,
taken by his brother.
19, as he was
While
born
Harry's
at
impact
9:03
is often
PM,
measured in
no
Netflix
royal
viewing
family.
hours and book
Will-
sales, William's
Those who
impact
follow
is
the
being
wind
measured in bricks,
are
mortar,
future-
and land reform.
Prince
It is the
William,
difference between a celebrity
few
brand
traits
and a
define
national
Cancer
infrastructure.
more strongly,
Yet,
safety
this path
for
is
those
fraught
close
with
to
invisible
support and
walls.
create
Within the
emotional,
family,
gentle souls
William's
behind the
corporate
royal
prince
title.
persona has
Often
created a new
described
kind
as
of distance. He has become a man of
cautious nature
dossiers and
revealed in his
strategy
leadership
meetings,
style
a man who
slowly
views
and
the
deliberately,
Sussex
quietly
drama
determined.
not as a family
He is
tragedy,
known to be
but as a
methodical and
PR
define Prince
distraction
William's
that must be
astrological
neutralized
blueprint.
so the real work
Key
can
Cancer
continue.
traits that deeply
He
connect
routines
with the
earns the
people he
accolade
serves.
of the world's best
He's
dressed
sensitive,
man, but the suit he
thoughtful,
wears
and
is a
is a future
uniform
king,
for a new kind of
shaped by
war,
both heart
a war
and
for the
mind,
survival
patience
of the
skills.
House of Windsor.
The result,
He has stopped
intellect
playing the
and
game of
natural
gossip,
communication as the
choosing
emotional
instead
anchor
to play
of
the
his
game of
household.
legacy. But as William builds his
Often
houses
described by
and
royal
Charles laughs with his
commentators, husband
subjects,
and father,
a darker storm is brewing.
and deeply
Because while the
committed,
Prince of
his
Wales
role
is
as-
looking at
he is
2040,
fiercely devoted
his
to his
brother
family.
is looking back
Prince
at
William embodies
1994.
this fully.
And the secrets Harry is about to
leads
unearth
with
regarding the
empathy.
family's darkest moments are
Gives
about to
William a
prove that no matter
quietly
how many
nurturing
houses you
presence.
build, you can never truly
Memory
bury the
and care.
past.
The planet
In the
of
House of
feelings.
Windsor, a falling leaf
Let's
isn't just
explore
nature,
five-
it's
creating
a
a
security
partnership
breach.
rooted
A
in
single
trust.
moment of optical
Prince
illusion in
William,
Geneva
a
has
nurturing
exposed the
instinct
terrifying
to
truth.
The
The
cusp of
monarchy
magic.
isn't just a government. It's a psychological
resilience,
experiment
and
where the
qual-
subjects
I
are
think you
losing
have
their
to work
minds,
as a team. You're
and the
only
brothers
as
are losing
solid
each other.
as the rest of the people
There is a
around
specific
you. And
kind
also,
of
I want
madness that comes from being
and
the most
playing
watched untouched people
and being
on
curious.
Earth. It is a world where
Constantly
every
just
gesture is
pushing
a
the
code,
envelope to,
and
I
every
think you
shadow
want to
is
have
a
a
story.
great soundboard
To
of
understand
people
why the
that
rift between
are,
William and Harry is
you know,
likely permanent,
I
you
do
have to
think there's
understand
something
the invisible
incredible about a
walls
handwritten,
of the
and yet
institution,
part of
the
that
barriers built to
challenge
protect the
that I
crown
was
that
trying
have
to
ended
solve
up
for was
imprisoning the humans
then how
within
do I
it.
create
In
community
recent
to
months,
appreciate?
the global media
But
has
by
reached
design,
a
I
fever
also
pitch of
recognize that a lot of
paranoia.
those people
We
aren't
saw it in a
going to-
bizarre,
I'm sure everyone
almost
knows this, but
surreal
when you put
incident
it in the
involving
freezer and it's
Catherine,
cold
the
and
Princess
out
of
it comes,
Wales.
That really
During a
suited her.
high-profile
That's great.
engagement,
Or old school.
every
So you're
camera
not,
in the
you didn't sleep
hemisphere
last
zoomed
night.
in on
I
her
know
shoulder.
You're here, but of course,
The
you're
headlines
not
were
sleeping
ready.
at all.
The princess,
loved
humbled
most
by nature.
might
It
carry
looked,
a
for all the
past
world,
his gaunt
like a
face,
bird had deposited
illuminating
its
the
business
stunned
on her
expression
royal
of a man
personage,
realizing
a direct echo of
that the
King's
person in the
seagull
vast
incident
living
in
room,
Newcastle.
staring
The
blankly
internet held
into
its breath,
nothingness.
but then the truth emerged
Pale
through the
moonlight fell
slow-motion
across. Did not
replay
sleep.
of 1,000
He sat
lenses.
alone in
It wasn't a
watchful
bird,
observation.
it was a leaf. A simple,
night,
brown,
Harry
autumn
Booth
leaf
and
that
compassion
had drifted from a
was
nearby
shaking
tree
violently.
and snagged on her coat. To
Business
the average
partners
person,
grew
this is a
cautious.
non-story.
Invitations
to the royal
to collaborate
family,
dwindled,
it is a metaphor
replaced
for
by
their existence. They live in a
The
world where a
post-royal
leaf can be
brand
mistaken
the
for a
Sussexes
disaster,
had so carefully
where an optical
constructed,
illusion can
rooted
trigger
in
a
truth
PR
against
crisis.
attacks built
This
on
microscopic
memory
scrutiny creates
without
a
evidence.
fortress mentality.
Bolster
It is why
theories
William has
of a
become
connection
the
to
corporate
Andrew,
prince,
while
cold,
the other
efficient,
defended her
and guarded.
fiercely.
He has realized that the only way to survive the
coincidences
microscope
from Meghan's
is to
past
become a machine. But Harry
one side,
chose to be the
relentless
mirror.
side, the world
While
held
William
its
builds
breath.
walls to keep the world out,
International
Harry has spent
media
the last
is
4
split
years trying to
neatly.
show the world what's inside. But in doing so, he has encountered a wall he didn't expect, the wall of public fatigue. Critics are beginning to point out a jarring
Public
contradiction
opinion
in the
shifted
Sussex
in an
narrative.
instant.
They speak of privacy and
where
escaping
moral
the lens,
boundaries were
yet
left
their every
behind
move seems
with the wake of the
choreographed for
waves
maximum visibility.
of
We saw this most
extravagant
clearly in
parties.
the aftermath
The
of their
intimacy
recent
went
international
beyond
trips.
polite small talk.
There is an irony
It
that
carried the
historians
loose,
are now dissecting
liberated
with surgical
air, his
precision.
hand resting
Meghan
lightly
Markle,
on her waist,
a woman who has built
in
a
a
brand
gesture
on the
heavy
toxic
with
nature
implication.
of social media and the
Strikingly
dangers
similar
of
to
AI,
Meghan Markle,
recently
it
found
was
herself in the
uncanny.
crosshairs of her own philosophy.
She stood close to
While
Prince
she delivered
Andrew,
speeches in
sparkling
Geneva
with
about the
confidence.
psychological toll
An
of the
appearance
digital
so
age,
at the
her
center
team was
stood a young
simultaneously
woman with
launching
dark
a
hair,
high-tech AI
a radiant
app
smile,
designed to sell the
and
clothes she was
eyes
wearing.
yacht. Mediterranean
It is, as some
sunlight
have
blazing
noted,
so
like
brightly
McDonald's
it almost
posting
hurt
about the
the
dangers
eyes.
of obesity. This hypocrisy isn't
Back
just
in
a
London,
PR
King
blunder.
Charles
It is a
rose from
symptom
his
of the
chair
lost soul
and
syndrome
walked to
we
the window.
explored in part
Algorithms
one. When you
began
leave
to
the
harden
structured
into
niche
accepted
of the
truth
monarchy,
in the
you
public
lose the
eye.
protection of the
Unverified
institution's
accusations,
inherent meaning.
amplified
You
by
have to
social media,
manufacture your
online
own
forums
meaning.
filled
And in the
the
frantic
gaps
rush
with
to stay
millions of
relevant,
users
the
supplying
Sussexes are
their
crossing their
darkest
own
speculations.
wires. They are fighting a war
A
against the media,
terrifying
using the
vacuum.
media's most aggressive tools.
Caution
And this
in
is where
Britain,
the invisible wall
created
between the
side
brothers
had yet to
becomes a
play its
fortress.
final card.
William looks at Harry and sees a
The
chaos
Sussexes'
agent,
silence in
someone
America
who is making the
of
institution
openings.
look messy, emotional,
She knew
and
action was
contradictory.
required,
Harry
but
looks at
not
William
yet,
and
not
sees
while
a
the other's
captured
woman
prince.
brimming with ambition,
Someone who has traded
navigating
his soul
elite
for a housing
parties
project
in
and
search
a
of
billion-pound
resurfaced
land
like blurred
portfolio.
film reels.
The silence between them is no longer
young-
a lack of communication.
Fragments of
It is a
memory
defensive
from her
strategy.
21 that in this
William
media
has realized
landscape,
that every word
silence
spoken to his
could be a
brother
strategy
is a potential
or
chapter
trap
in a future
model
book,
to weigh
a potential
every
scene
angle.
in a Netflix documentary.
She knew
He has
better than
retreated
any
into the
small
Duchy of
habit that
Cornwall,
surfaced whenever
into the
she felt the
welfare
noose
monarchy,
of public
using
scrutiny
the cold,
tightening.
hard logic of land
From the
reform
British tabloids,
to shield himself from
her
the heat
lips
of his
pressed
brother's grievances.
into a thin
But even a
line
billion-pound
of
shield has a weakness.
But
While
as she
William builds
scanned the
houses
blazing
for the
red
future,
headlines
the ghost of the
forwarded by her
past is about to
assistant,
return
impeccable
in the
armor,
form of a Hollywood
modern,
film.
self-possessed
A project
woman
so
unafraid
sensitive,
to
so
confront
searingly
outdated
true,
prejudice. In
that it threatens to
2020,
pull the Duke of Sussex
she had
back
forged
into a
in
political
gazing
firestorm.
out over the
Not with his brother,
sun-drenched
but with a
California
former
garden,
president of the United
half
States.
a world away from London.
California was
in
supposed
the
to be the
grand
sanctuary,
yet
a land
isolated
where a prince could
Montecito
finally be a
estate,
private citizen.
while Meghan
But
Markle
today,
was
the palm trees
merely
of
a
Montecito
struggling young
are
actress
casting
in
long,
Los
jagged
Angeles,
shadows.
a name
Between a
absent
high-stakes
from any
war of
British
words with a former
aristocratic
president and a
guest
billion-dollar
list,
deal
an
that is starting
untold
to
chapter
bleed,
of her past.
Harry is discovering that in America,
And
you
that
don't just
absence
lose your title.
only sharpened the ache of
Bureaucracy can
doubt
make you
in
lose
Harry's
your home.
chest.
The greatest illusion of
An
the
admission,
21st century
yet it
is
lacked
that
the
fame
righteous
equals
fury
power.
one would expect
In
from
London,
someone
Prince
falsely
Harry was an
accused,
institutional
composed,
pillar,
but her
protected by
eyes were
sovereign
deep
immunity
and
a
unreadable.
1,000 years of unwritten rules.
The silence was
in
not. She
California,
offer
he is
any
something else
explanation for the
entirely.
newly leaked
a
details.
high-value immigrant in a politically
Her face
polarized
remained
land.
cold
To
disintegration
understand
through
the
the
current
half-closed
crisis,
door.
you have to look past the red
She did not
carpets
enter
and
to
into the
comfort
cold,
him,
hard
nor
logic
did
of the
outside
California
her
mirage.
shadow stretching
For 4
long
years,
under the faint
Duke
light,
and Duchess of Sussex
quietly
have
watching her
attempted to
husband's
balance on a
silence.
razor-thin wire.
She stood in the hallway
On one
mental
side,
turmoil,
they seek the
Meghan
privacy
chose a
of private
response of
citizens.
chilling papers
On the other,
only
they require the
amplified the
visibility
horror
of
churning
global
inside
icons
him.
to fund a
While
lifestyle
Harry
that costs
spiraled
millions of
into
dollars every year to
the
maintain.
dry rustle
But as
of falling
2024
paper.
unfolds, the wire is
In a
beginning
surge
to
of
snap.
agitation,
The most
he
immediate
swept
threat
several
isn't a
folders
tabloid
off the
headline.
desk,
It's a legal
spiderweb
dossier.
outward beneath his
The Heritage
feet,
Foundation,
with no way
a
to stop
powerful
him.
American think
Watching
tank,
cracks,
has launched a relentless legal battle to unearth
Harry
Harry's
felt
US
like a
visa
man
records.
standing
Their
on a
argument
drifting
is simple
iceberg in
and
the middle of the
devastating.
ocean
If
of
the
her
prince admitted to
determination.
drug use in his memoir
Now
Spare,
they carried an
did he lie on his
unsettling,
immigration forms?
ambiguous
And if he
shadow.
didn't lie, did he receive
Yet ambitious
special
years in
treatment
Europe,
because of his bloodline?
details he had once
This isn't
seen
just
as proof. Remembered
celebrity
the
gossip.
stories Meghan
This is
had
a
told
survival
of her
issue.
difficult. Now
While Harry
sprouted
settles into his
and
role as a
grew like
producer,
weeds.
his very right
He
to stay in his
remembers
American sanctuary
questions
is
that
being
had always
treated as
been
a political
taboo in their
football.
marriage,
And the man holding
paced
the ball
aimlessly
is none
through
other
the
than
darkened
Donald Trump.
room, breath
The
coming in
friction
short,
between the
ragged hair
Sussexes and
through
the Trump
the
camp
fragile
has
illusion of
transitioned from
peace
subtle
they had
shade
maintained
to
for
an
so
all-out
long.
PR war.
He rose
Trump
at
has
puzzle
publicly
pieces,
stated that he wouldn't protect
not yet forming
Harry
a complete
like the current
picture,
administration has,
but sharp enough to
suggesting
other
that if he
described.
returns to power,
The
the Duke's
coincidences of
residency
time
could be
and
in
place
jeopardy.
fit like
In
razor sharp.
response, Harry's latest
Or
project
sitting in
with
the
Netflix
dark tinted
feels
cars,
less
his
like a
fa-
creative
a
endeavor
young Meghan
and more like a
strolling through
strategic
silent
clapback.
palaces late at night,
The project
closed his
in
eyes
question
trying
is
to
No
banish
Way
the
Out,
imagined
a
scenes.
searing adaptation of a
now
book about the
clicked
war in
together with
Afghanistan,
cruel
specifically
precision.
focused on British
He
troops under
called
siege.
for his wife,
On the surface,
but the
it's a tribute
details
to his
of a
military
corded
roots.
sequence
Beneath
from
the
20
surface,
years
it's a
earlier, but a
reclamation of
warning
his
from a
narrative
man
as a warrior.
desperately trying
It is
to
a
keep
reminder
his
to the
son
world
from being
and
swept
to his
away
critics
by the raging
that
flood.
he isn't just a man in a gray suit.
Harry felt a
He is a
chain
man who
reaction
saw
of
the front
collapse
lines.
unfolding
But as
inside,
Newsweek
laying
and
the
other outlets
details
have
of the
noted,
secret. He
this
had always
film is a
trusted his
double-edged sword.
instincts and the
By
fierce
re-engaging with his
protectiveness he
military
felt
past,
his mind.
Harry risks looking like he's
Meeting
playing
with the
work in
former
Royal
reporter.
from a 3,000-mile
It was not an
distance,
order,
further
nor
alienating
an
the
accusation
brother who was
in
actually
his
doing
ears.
the job.
Low,
And then there is the
weary,
Meghan
yet
Markle
urgent,
contradiction,
still
the
echoed it
Geneva
so
incident.
tightly in his
In
hand
a moment that PR
his
experts are
fingertips
calling a
turned
catastrophe born of
His
disaster,
father's voice
Meghan recently
of
traveled
the
to
most
Geneva to
powerful
speak about the
people.
dangers of the digital world. She spoke with a
Boom,
trembling
feeling
sincerity
the
about
world
the toxic
she once
nature of social
controlled,
media
crumbling
and the
piece
unseen
by piece.
harms of AI on children's mental
Hours
health.
later, at
It
the
was
palace,
a speech designed to position her
photocopies
as a
of the
modern
files
martyr,
lay
a
on
woman
the
who has suffered at the
destigation
hands
unit.
of the internet and is now here
Meghan's
to save
flight
us all.
departed
But
without
the
her.
Mirage
She remained
flickered.
in the small
While she was
room at her
speaking, her
and
commercial
forwarded
team
it
was
to the
preparing the
specialized
rollout of a
investment.
new high-tech AI
Outside,
shopping app.
security
The
continued
premise?
their work.
You can zoom in on
but
Meghan's
minds
wardrobe
were
during
on
her
the incident.
humanitarian visits and buy the
Airport
clothes
police
instantly
completed
through
the
the app.
report, stamped it,
The
urgent,
irony was not
royal
lost on the
assets.
Swiss, a people known
It
for
had
their
seemed
clinical,
perfect
cool-headed
until the scanner
logic.
found the
As
black
royal
pouch,
historian
turning
Rafe
part of the royal
Hadelmanko
estate
observed,
into
the Swiss
personal
have
atlas
zero
slate.
interest in royalty,
This
let alone
flight would
hangers
take her
on.
to Scotland
them,
to
the
finalize
contradiction was
confirmation.
glaring.
Fear
You cannot
now
lecture the
gripped her
world on the
chest
traps
like a
of social
stone.
media, while
She had
simultaneously
planned
using those
everything
same traps
meticulously,
to sell
trying to contact her
$5,000
lawyer,
cashmere coats.
but the signal
It
was
is,
temporarily
as the historians
blocked.
have put it, like
to
McDonald's
leave.
posting an anti-obesity campaign
She sat
on
there,
their Instagram
gripping her
feed.
phone tightly.
This
Waiting
hypocrisy
room with
is
leather
eroding
chairs
the
and a
Sussex
coffee
shield.
machine.
Every time
but
they
not
post an
perceived
image of
an
their
encrypted
children on
email
social
with
media
attached
while
photos.
campaigning for digital privacy,
Meghan was
the public's
escorted to a
frustration
private
grows.
room, reached the
lost
highest
soul
levels.
we saw in part 1
At
is now
Kensington
manifesting
Palace,
as a
the duty
confused
officer was
brand.
full
They are a
report,
couple who wants to
await
be
instructions.
relatable, like King Charles.
Just 40 minutes
Yet they
later,
insist on a
the
level of
information,
security and
Meghan
deference
Markle,
that even the king
the
himself
voice
has begun to
on the other
dismantle.
end grew grave.
As the legal
Secure
pressure
the
in
scene.
Washington
Classified
mounts
documents
and the
discovered
commercial
at
pressure in
Heathrow
Hollywood
involving a
intensifies,
Scottish
the
estate.
Sussexes are finding
Owner
themselves
of luggage,
in a no-way-out
an
scenario
urgent secure
of their
call
own
went
making.
out to
They
Buckingham
have escaped
Palace's
the Gilded
protected
Cage
line.
of Windsor, only to
Royal
find
class
themselves
serial
in the
numbers,
glass box
times,
of
and
California,
locations,
where the
and
walls
sealed
are
everything
transparent.
in an evidence
The sun is
bag.
relentless, and
Midweek,
everyone is waiting for the
Airport
first crack
police
to
were summoned
appear.
immediately.
But while Harry
They
fights
photographed
Trump
each
and
page,
Meghan fights the
recorded.
internet, back
These
in
are
London,
personal
the Prince
copies
of
for
Wales has
legal
just made a
review.
discovery that will change the brothers'
Her voice
relationship
sounded
forever. A
Meghan
discovery
tried
that
to
has
stay
nothing
calm.
to do with land, and
There's
everything
been
to
a
do
mistake.
with a promise promise made to their mother
These
30
are
years
royal
ago.
classified
A promise that one
documents.
brother has kept,
We are detaining
and
them
the
and
other
preparing a
has
release.
arguably betrayed.
The shift
The war is
supervisor
over,
glanced
not
at his
because
colleague,
peace has been found,
then
but
at
because
Meghan,
the silence has
voice,
become permanent.
handing her the
In
documents,
the echoes of a 1997
gently
promise,
placing his hand
one
over
brother has
hers.
chosen the kingdom.
Look at this,
The other
he
has
said
chosen the
in
ghost.
a low,
And
tense
today,
burst
the king has
oversight of
finally
certain
signed
royal
the decree
assets.
that turns a family
William
feud
sat
into a
beside
historical
her,
casualty.
family and health,
History doesn't
which had
remember the
temporarily
arguments,
dispersed.
it remembers the outcome.
Remission. She
For 3
appeared less in
decades, the
public
world
now,
looked at William and Harry
prioritizing
and saw a
major
single
surgery
unit,
and
the 2 boys
chemotherapy.
behind the coffin.
By
A
early
bond forged in the
2025,
fires of a
she had
global
her
tragedy.
ongoing
There
recovery
was a
from
whispered
cancer
legend,
treatment.
a brotherhood pact,
Since
made in the quiet
2024,
nights of
she had undergone
1997, that no matter what
She
the
was
crown
resting on the
demanded,
sofa
they would protect
after a
each
long
other
day
first.
with limited
But as the fog of
engagements due to protecting.
2024 settles over London,
He
that
rose
pact has been
and walked
ceremonially
quickly down the
burned.
corridor
To understand the
Catherine's
finality
private
of this
property.
moment, you have to look
It was
at the
a
working
direct
royal
insult
rules
to the
we've
family,
discussed since part
to the
1.
legacy he and
For
Catherine
years, there
anger
was a gray
surged,
area,
mixed
a hope
with
that Harry might
profound
one day
worry.
return to his niche.
This wasn't
that
just
window
about
has been
bringing,
slammed shut.
especially not to
King
Meghan,
Charles III,
with whom
the man who
relations had
laughed at
long
seagulls
been
and
deeply
struggled with
fractured.
pens, has
Royal
made the most
duty
difficult decision
above
of his
personal
reign.
gain.
He has allowed the cold
She had never
logic
shown
of the
any
Prince of
intention
Wales
of
to take the
transfer,
lead.
crumpling the
The
page
whispers
in
from
his
the
fist.
palace are no longer
He
about
knew his wife
reconciliation.
too well.
They
Catherine
are about
always placed
title
with
management.
documents.
A movement
left
is
him
growing
stunned.
within the British Parliament,
This
backed
can't
by a
be,
significant portion
William
of the
muttered.
public, to officially
The
strip the
signature at the
Sussexes
bottom,
of their ducal
familiar
titles.
strokes he had
While the
seen
king
hundreds
remains a
of
father,
times on
he is
family.
first and
Catherine
foremost
had
a
agreed
sovereign.
to
He has seen
transfer
the
a
data.
portion
He has seen
of
the Geneva
ownership to
contradictions
Meghan Markle
and the
and
Trump
would safeguard
minefields.
it for future
He
generations.
understands that a monarchy cannot survive
Yet here,
if its
the
most famous
contract
members
clearly stated
are seen as
he had
commercial
witnessed his
drifters
grandmother
who
entrusted
use the
to her
crown's
in
prestige to
private
sell
meetings,
AI apps
stressing
and Netflix
that Catherine's
thrillers.
deep trust
The
and
lost soul we
long-term
identified at the start of this
responsibility.
journey is now facing the ultimate
William knew this
existential
management
threat,
of Princess
institutional
Catherine,
erasure.
his wife,
In William's
as
eyes,
a symbol
the
of
great
Elizabeth
exit wasn't a
II's
search for
will
freedom,
and
it was a
decisions.
betrayal of the mission.
This
While
property
William
had been
uses his
placed
billion-pound
under the
duchy
many
to house the
structures,
homeless,
a
Harry
priceless
uses his
heritage
platform to
asset.
revisit the scars of the 90s.
According to the
One is
late
building
Queen
a
and
future,
Darkening, as
the
he
other
read,
is excavating a cemetery.
a transfer
The
agreement for
divergence
royal
is
property
total.
in the Scottish
The
Highlands,
invisible walls are now
vast
made of
acreage,
reinforced
including
concrete.
an ancient
There is a
castle,
profound irony
sprawling
in the
hunting
Duke of
forests,
Sussex's current
and
project,
support.
No Way Out. As he
He
recreates
turned
the siege
page
of
after
Afghanistan
page,
on a
his
Hollywood
expression
set,
where a
he
set
is
of
living a
freshly
siege of his
arrived
own.
photocopies
He is
had been
surrounded by the
delivered
very media
via
he
secure
hates,
transmission
fighting a
from
legal battle
Heathrow
for
private
his
study.
residency in a country that treats him as a
Warm
political
golden
pawn.
lamplight
And
fell
looking back at a
across the
family that has
antique
learned to
wooden
breathe
desk
without
at
him.
Kensington
The California
Palace.
Mirage
Prince William
is fading.
sat alone in
The
his
gold of
only
the
want
Montecito
Lilibet to be
sunset is
I have
being
no
replaced
regrets.
by the clinical
I
blue
remained
of
firm
legal documents
from Meghan's
and the
defenders.
gray reality of a brand
Yet
that has
Elena
lost its royal
became an
gravity.
icon.
Without the
She
institutional
received
niche,
thousands of
Harry is
supportive messages,
discovering that a prince
though
in
also
exile
threats.
is just
Harrison
another
didn't stay
celebrity
online.
in a world that is
Television
already bored
commentators
of
joined in.
celebrities. Meanwhile,
Elena,
back in the
once
drafty
unknown,
corridors of
work
Windsor,
comes
the
first,
machinery hums
children
along.
second.
The Princess of Wales
The time
continues to draw
and career
thousands
to be
with a
there.
single look.
And Meghan,
the king continues
family
to
charity
bridge the
events.
gap with humor and humility.
Kate is a
And
real
the Prince
mother,
of Wales
one user
continues to
wrote.
consolidate power.
She
preparing
sacrifices
for a reign that will
taking
be defined by
George,
efficiency
Charlotte,
rather
and
than
Louis to the
emotion.
park,
The
teaching them to
1997
draw,
promise is
reading
dead.
bedtime
the
stories,
spare has been
and
replaced by
joining
the
them.
strategy. As
Kate,
we watch these
always
two men
seen
move
in
into the
warm
second half
moments
of their
with her
lives,
children.
we are left with a
Comparisons
haunting
to Princess
question
Kate
that
Middleton
defines our
flooded
modern
in
age.
video.
Is it better to be a
Social
captured
media
part of something
exploded
eternal,
with millions
or to
of
be
views
free
and shares.
in a void?
News outlets ran
Was the
headlines.
freedom to speak worth the loss
Former
of the power
nanny
to belong?
accuses
the crown
Meghan
remains,
of neglecting
indifferent
daughter,
to the humans who wear
shockinated
it or
across
flee
public
from it.
opinion.
It is a 1,000-year-old
Major
machine
knew doing it
that
for
has just
Lilibet.
finished self-correcting.
That child
the rift
deserves
is no longer
real
a
love,
wound.
not
it is
to
a
be an
scar.
accessory for
and
public
scars,
image.
while they tell a story,
The chain of
no
evidence
longer bleed.
deadens Meghan's
The
schedule
brothers
at the
began
time.
this journey together
She was
in the
preparing
shadow
for
of a
an
mother's
advertising
loss.
photo shoot.
They ended on opposite sides of an ocean.
Samantha
one
emphasized,
holding the weight of a
I'm not
nation,
doing this for
the other
personal
holding
revenge.
a microphone.
I'm
Both
that the
searching for a
timestamp
piece that their
matches for the
birthright
child.
never intended them to have.
I verified
You think
system.
the war is between brothers?
Elena backed
You're
it up
wrong.
before she
The
quit
real
because
battle is
she was
being
worried.
fought by a ghost, a
This is not
1,000-year-old
edited,
machine that has
not
decided
fabricated.
Prince Harry
This
is no
camera
longer a
belongs
part
to
of the
their
code.
own home
And in the
security.
world of absolute power,
Samantha
being
spoke.
deleted
Elena
is far
entered,
more
picked
dangerous
Lilibet
than being
up to
defeated.
comfort her.
To understand
Meghan
the current
remained
state of the British
oblivious,
monarchy,
eyes
you
glued
must
to her
move past
phone,
the faces
occasionally
of the king
chuckling
and the
at
Prince
something
of Wales.
online.
You must look
She
into
never
the
looked up,
shadows, into
never
the drafty
moved.
libraries, where the men
The
in
clip
gray
ended
suits,
when
the
Elle stretched out on the on the
institutional
sofa,
architects
earbuds in,
operate.
eye
They do not
stopping.
think in terms of years.
Meanwhile,
they think in
in the
terms of
adjacent living
centuries.
room,
To
Meghan
them,
lay.
the Sussex
The
rebellion
crying
was never a
lasted
family
over 7
crisis.
minutes without
It
calling,
was a
"Mama."
system error. And the machine
Mama,
has spent the last 4
security camera.
years running a silent
The
surgical
footage was
repair.
clear. Lilibet,
The greatest
around
weapon in
2
the
years
royal
old,
arsenal isn't
sitting
the
in the
military
playroom
or the
sobbing
wealth.
uncontrollably.
It is tactical silence.
Reaching for the door.
While the world waited
repeatedly
for a
allegedly
clapback
recorded
from the
from the
Princess of
Sussex
Wales,
homes.
she
One
gave
day
them
after the
something far
interview,
more potent,
Elena and
an
Samantha
impenetrable
released the
image.
first video.
Catherine
A
has
short
become the
clip.
ghost in the
Then
machine.
she helped me
In
make
part
everything
4,
public
we saw how
safely.
a single leaf on her shoulder
Just
became
a
a global
background,
event.
and
But look closer
confirmed
at
I
her
had
reaction.
worked for Meghan through
No
the
statement,
nanny agency
no
records.
interview, no
Friend.
grievance. By choosing to
Samantha
be a silent symbol,
verified
she has
my-
forced the public to
I
project their own
contacted her
virtues onto
through a
her.
mutual.
She has realized
Samantha
a grim truth
was the only
of the
person
digital age.
openly
In a
confronting
world
Meghan,
of constant noise,
and she had spoken
the person
about
who says
protecting
the
children.
least
I was
holds
just a
the most
former
power.
nanny.
Contrast this
No
with the
one
strategy
would
in
believe me
Montecito.
if I spoke
Prince
out
Harry
alone.
and Meghan Markle
Way
are
to make my
trapped in
voice
the noise
heard.
paradox.
Chose
To stay
Samantha
relevant and
as the
fund their
intermediary.
sanctuary, they must speak.
I
They
had no
must
way-
produce. They must reveal.
Elena
But every
explained
time
why
they
she-
reveal a
I was
secret,
afraid
they
that if I
diminish
stayed
their
silent,
own value. They are
Lilibet would grow
overexposing
up
the brand
surrounded
until
by
it becomes
indifference.
white noise.
Still worried
The
about
royal
her.
machine is simply waiting for the
Missing it.
Sussexes to talk themselves
But I
into
stood
irrelevance.
streaming down her
They aren't
cheeks.
fighting Harry. They are letting him
I
burn
quit
through
because
his
I
own
couldn't keep
supply
wi-
of
I
truth
couldn't bear it
until there
anymore.
is nothing left but ash.
Elena paused,
The lost
took a
soul we
deep
identified
breath,
in part
tear
1
phone,
is now a
telling me
casualty
to
of
let
this
the child
algorithmic
cry it out for a
correction.
while.
The monarchy is moving
She'd
from a
stop
human
eventually.
institution back to a monolith.
But Meghan would just
King
lie
Charles,
there,
despite
scrolling
his
on her from
seagulls and his
hunger
pens,
or
is
tiredness.
the transition.
I had
He
to
is the
rush in.
bridge.
The
But the
speakers,
destination
mixed
is William,
with the roll
the prince who has
announcements
traded his
blared
brother
over
for a housing
Heathrow
strategy.
International
William
Airport
has
on an
understood
early
that the only way
February
to save the
afternoon
crown
in
is to
2026
make it look like a
was as
high-functioning government
bustling as
department.
ever.
He is turning the firm
By a
into
woman
foundation,
backed into a corner.
a billion-pound engine of social utility that doesn't need drama
Was this
to
a
survive.
dangerous
But there is a
misunderstanding
high price for this
or
survival.
a calculated
The machine
move
requires
and
the
suspicious
sacrifice of the
signatures?
personal for
One
the
quiet
institutional.
question
The
emerged.
great divergence we saw in part
So
6
who prepared that
is the
contract?
final deletion of
And
despair
why was
from the
Meghan
system.
flying to Scotland
Harry is no
at
longer
this
a
exact
character in
time?
the story of the crown.
Amid the
he has
red
been moved
seals,
to the archive.
Catherine,
He is a
who had
historical
been
footnote,
quietly
a
undergoing
cautionary
treatment
tale
and rarely
told in the
appeared in
corridors of
public,
power.
firmly stated
As
that
the
she
sun
had never
sets on the
signed
California
any such
Mirage,
document.
we see the
Agreed
final shape
to
of the
transfer
new
a
era.
portion
It is a
of the
crown that is
property
more
to
efficient,
Helena.
more corporate, and more
Prince
distant
William
than ever
immediately
before.
received
it has
a
survived
copy
the
of the
scandals
files,
of the 90s,
and
the
from that
tragedies
moment,
of the 2000s,
the storm
and the
erupted.
rebellion of the 2020s
Management.
by becoming a machine
What
that no
shocked
longer
even more,
feels.
the
We are left
documents
watching two
showed
versions
that
of a
Catherine
life.
had
On one side of the
property
Atlantic, a man
that the
sits
late
in a glass
queen
box,
had once
surrounded
entrusted
by the fame
to
he
Princess
fought
Catherine,
for, but the belonging
Field,
he lost.
related
On the
to
other
the
side,
royal estate
a man stands
and
on a
ancient
billion-pound
castle in
foundation,
Scotland.
holding the
No
weight
one
of a nation,
expected
but the
Meghan's
coldness
carry-on
of a throne.
suitcase to be
Both are
held
haunted
back.
by the 1997
Inside
promise,
a tightly
but
wrapped
only one
black
has realized that
pouch was
the
a
crown
set of
doesn't keep
documents
promises.
bearing
It only
the
keeps
royals
itself.
stretched out
the
on the
machine
sofa.
has rebooted.
Earbuds
The error
in,
has been
not
cleared.
stopping.
The future is here.
Meanwhile,
and it has
in
no
the
room
adjacent
for the
living
brothers
room,
who once
Meghan
stood
lay
together behind a coffin.
the crying